Hello, everybody. This is James Pelton again, back home. I missed my office so much. I was just telling Mike, I've been traveling so much, but I know where my snacks are here at home. I know exactly where my mic is, all my connections and everything. So good to be home. If you guys are here in the audience, first off, appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys showing up day after day. Please hit the like button as we're going. And if you have questions, you want clarifications, please let me know as we're going. And if you watch this as a replay, which is most people do, thank you for watching the replay. And if you ask questions, I will not be answering them live because that's not how technology works. But still ask your questions, and I'll check back on questions on this video for the next couple of weeks, and we'll make sure we get everything taken care of. So let's get some shout outs from people who are currently watching. Let me know where you're watching from. Just want to see. Again, I've been traveling all over the world, but just love to see where we're all connecting from. Technology is an amazing thing that we can connect with people all around the world. Not possible, 50 years ago. It was the world was not like this. So thank goodness for the internet and for YouTube. So I want to especially welcome Tari. Thank you for joining my community. Appreciate it. I've got some big things in store for my community coming up here. So thanks for joining. So we have Mike on, and he is a second-time guest now. So, and potentially many more times to come. He's got a lot of stuff that he's going on. And one thing I really appreciate about Mike is the stuff he knows about is stuff that I know nothing about. So a lot of times I bring on guests who it's like, I might know more about this than you do, but this is completely out of my wheelhouse. So I want to bring on someone else to kind of explain it to us, talk through us, see if there's potential for us, always looking for passive income plays, and especially in the around real estate is something that I'm always on the lookout for. So as we're going, please do ask your questions. While Mike is here, let's get those answered now rather than you asking me later and me having to say, let me check with Mike on that. So Mike, could you start us out as we're going here with a quick introduction of yourself and a little bit of background? Then I'd like to hear a little bit, how did you get into real estate? And then we'll start talking about the program we're going to talk about today.
Okay, sure. Glad to. And thanks for having me on the call. First off, James, really appreciate it. And hi to everybody that's watching. And hopefully you all will grab a pen and a paper. I talk a little bit fast, so make sure to take some notes because this is some pretty cool stuff that 99% of investors out there are not doing. And by the way, it's not going to require you to spend thousands of dollars to do it. At most, it's going to cost you between $1 and $10. That's it to do a deal. So it's very, very profitable, and it's very cheap to get into this business. And I figured this out. So I'm what you would call a 30-year overnight success. So it took me 30 years to figure all this stuff out. And I'm going to condense it in 40, 45 minutes here with James, and we're going to hopefully give you a lot of information that you can use in your life or your business, but really your life to change it and make a better financial future for you and for your family. So the way I started doing real estate as soon as I came out of the Army. So I was in the Army. I came out, I was a systems engineer, and I found out that I was okay as an engineer. There were a lot of people who were better at me, and it really wasn't my passion. And I started getting in real estate. And the very first course I bought, I'm going to age myself here. I bought Carlton Sheets. I don't know if James, you probably don't remember. You haven't been alive long enough to remember that. But
never heard of it. I can Google it though.
Yeah, you could Google it. It's one of the first infomercials that was out there when that stuff was very popular. And so I bought that. And I remember looking at real estate and trying to figure out how to do it. And I started buying property, and I started wholesaling property where you're essentially flipping contracts. I started buying foreclosures and doing all this stuff. And I realized that I was constantly competing with other investors that were out there, which by itself is not bad, right? That tells you you're in a good industry when there's others trying to make money as well. And what I started to notice, though, is I started to notice a pattern on the various deals that I was doing. On all the deals that I would buy, which would mean I'd have to come up with the cash to buy the deal, and I'd have to renovate the deal, or I'd have to fix it up or paint it or do something in their minimum anyway, just to get the deal flipped. But I was noticing that there were always debts that had to be paid on these properties. And so I started to do a little bit of additional work. And what really came to mind for me is one time when I was buying a foreclosure property, I noticed that this foreclosure property also had a judgment lien on it. We'll talk about what that is a little bit later, give you more specifics. But I tried to buy the property and I was not able to. I got outbid at the auction. So I was literally at the auction steps. I had a cashier's check in my hand so that I could bid at the auction. I was trying to buy this property and I got outbid and I was mad. And I realized when I was looking at that, and I kind of went back over the numbers because I did all my research and all the data on the property, and I noticed something that I had seen again and again and again. Not only did I see a mortgage, but I also saw a judgment against the homeowner and the property. And I figured, well, I'm going to buy the property and it'll pay off the debt, so the debts are wiped clear, which is what happens in foreclosure. But what most people don't realize is that I could have bought that judgment and I could have bought the property. If I didn't buy the property, which I didn't in that case, and I buy the judgment instead, when somebody else buys the property, to get clear title, guess what? They still have to pay off the debt. And that's where all of a sudden it started to click to me that, oh, I could make money from these debts on property. And here's the important part, and James, I think you'll love this as well, is that I don't have to buy the property. I'm not interested in the property. And all of a sudden, when I finally realized that one little idea, I could make money from everybody else's properties anywhere in the United States. So long as we got a buyer and you got a seller, so long as there's a deal going on and there's one of these judgments mixed in this deal, I can control that judgment for $1 to $10 out of pocket, kind of summarizing here. And I get paid when that transfer occurs because there's a title company loophole that's mandated by the government, the way this stuff all works, and I get paid in that transaction. So that's how I got started. So it was kind of a slow transition, doing the regular stuff everybody says, trying to go, find a property, trying to work with for sale by owners, trying to do wholesale contracts. Then you buy foreclosure properties and start working my way up the scale. So that's how I got started. And, one of the other calls we did is business acquisitions. Well, I learned to take all the techniques I learned from real estate, which I still do today. Don't get me wrong, I still do it today. And I transition that into business acquisitions, which gives me a couple of extra zeros on a deal and profit. So that's kind of like a little bit of background.
Okay. No, very cool. I mean, this sounds very cool. So a few questions right off the bat. I know my audience, so I know exactly what they're going to want to know. We kind of have the same questions, but first off, so how much capital is required? Because people want to know when they're listening to this if they're disqualified immediately. So how much capital is kind of required if you want to get started with this method?
Well, I'll give you two answers. And the way I'm going to do that is by way of example. And the first deal that I did, because I didn't know any better, I negotiated, this was a $7,500 judgment. I negotiated to buy it for $2,400. So it's 37 cents on the dollar. So I remember it to this day, very vivid. And I paid that $2,400 out of pocket because I didn't know any better. Now, I still made $7,500 and I had $2,400 invested. And when you subtract those two out, right, I have a $5,000 cash profit, which I made $5,000 on the deal. I was very happy. I essentially more than doubled my money in profit, right? So it was a good deal. What I learned later on, and this is where experience over time comes in, I started playing around with ideas. Well, how can I, mainly because I wanted to do more deals. If I have $2,400 on this deal, $3,000 in this deal, $5,000, $1,000, right? All of a sudden I have all my money out waiting for deals to close and I can't do any more. Only when that money comes back in can I then go do more. And so I'm trying to figure out how can I do more deals with less cash out of pocket. And we do that by something that's called an option agreement. So an option agreement says I have the right to do something, but I don't have the obligation to perform. So let me try to explain that a little bit more, but slightly differently. So if I have a judgment over here on a property and I want to buy this judgment, so I do an option agreement with the owner of the judgment saying, let's say it's a $10,000 judgment. Let's make the math really easy in our head. Today, I'm buying about 10 cents on the dollar or less. So a $10,000 judgment, I'm buying for $1,000. That's all I'm going to pay for, $1,000. So I contact the creditor, the owner of the judgment. I say, hey, we go through my negotiation scripts. We have this all broken out, right? So we go through a negotiation script and I agree to pay the seller or the owner of this judgment $1,000 for the judgment. But I agree to pay it to him sometime between now and the next 240 days. Now think about that. It gives me plenty of time for the property that is being sold, residential, commercial, raw land, doesn't matter, gives me 240 days for that property to be sold. So in order to make a contract valid in real estate, you must have an exchange of money. It doesn't say how much money, it just must be an exchange of money. So I have my $1 option agreement. So James, this goes to your question, how much is required? It turns out only $1. And most of the time, I never pay the dollar because the seller never asks for the dollar. But in contract, it says, oh, you paid $1. It's just like when somebody buys a mortgage or gets a house and they get a mortgage, it says on their paperwork for $10 in hand cash received, but nobody ever pays the $10. It's the exact same thing. You must have an exchange of money to make a contract in real estate valid. If there's no exchange of money, it's not valid. It's just the way it works. So I have my $1 option agreement. And that means all of a sudden I can do this $10,000 deal. I can do another. I can do however many I want. And that's why this business is perfect, because I can work in any county in the U.S. There's 3,300 counties. I can work in Canada. It works the same way, by the way, in the United Kingdom, and works the same way in Australia. Exactly the same. So I know you have some international customers, so it works anywhere you want. But the beauty, really, and I know I'm kind of going off topic just a little bit, but the beauty is that this can be done virtually. There's no requirement for me to ever go to the courthouse, which when I started, I physically had to drive down to the courthouse, go in the courtroom, go in, and a lot of times in some of these courtrooms didn't even have computers back then. Yes, I know, it's way back there. They didn't have computers. So I literally had to go ask for the case file, open up the case file, write down the information, and do my research manually. I would spend all day at the courthouse to come up with 2 or 3 deals. Now, those deals were profitable, but I had to do it manually. Today, I can find 100 deals in about 2 or 3 minutes. And so that's the difference in the power of the internet and working from home and doing all this way. But it's a little bit more information than what you were asking. But so the answer really is essentially about $1. But I got to record that paperwork at the courthouse. So the courthouse is going to charge me anywhere from $1.50 to $2 to record my documents so that I can secure my right to that property in that lien. So the seller of that lien won't get their cash before me. Right? I need to control it. If you don't control it, you won't get paid. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that's perfect. So capital requirement shouldn't disqualify anybody. With very, very little capital to get going with this. And I just want to welcome some people from the audience. So Tim, good to see you. Ozark, good to see you. Mr. C, Scott, John, appreciate all you guys, especially RX Rob, especially you guys in my community. Really appreciate you being here. And then that was actually going to be my next question, which you pretty much answered. Is this U.S. only? Because like you said, about half my audience is from, UK, Australia, Canada, and they all can do this as well, too. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you don't have, it's not like if I want to buy a business in the U.S., which we do, and we have a Canadian corporation that buys business in the U.S., I have to get specific international transfer agreements done. However, if you're in, let's say, the UK and you're working here in the US, you can have a UK address. The money is paid by the title company. This is the important part that everybody forgets. You're thinking that you're getting paid by potentially the seller of the judgment. You're not. We're stepping in the middle of a transaction between a buyer and a seller of real estate. There's certain debts that we look for. When we find those debts, we gain control of that debt. Costs us $1, okay? You can have an address in the UK. Well, the title company, and you need to let the title company know that it's you, of course, right? And then we show you how to do all this stuff. So when the title company goes through and they actually go to closing and money is changed from the buyer to the seller, well, a certain amount has to be held off or held in reserve in order to pay the first mortgage, the second mortgage, any judgment liens, any tax liens, all those things have to be paid in order to give clear title to the buyer. As part of that, though, because the title company says, okay, well, there's X amount, there's 10 grand here for this judgment. We need to pay it off. Where does the money go? Well, of course, they're going to contact you, who might live in the UK, and they say, where do you want the money sent? Oh, well, here's my wiring details. Please wire to my bank account in the United Kingdom. They'll charge you a fee for that. So what? Right? It's found money to you, right? So they'll wire the money directly to your account. So you don't need to have a US address to make this work. And by the way, you could do this from the UK, in the UK or Australia. It all works the same way, or in Canada, or from those countries to here, or here to those countries. So it works all over.
Okay, very good. So again, looking for disqualification. So capital requirement isn't a big deal. You can do this internationally. The third one that usually disqualifies people is how much time does this take? So you have some people who have not a lot of money, a lot of time. You have some people who have more capital but not a lot of time. So how much time would you say that this would take someone to really give it a good go?
Realistically, I would say it'd be about 4 to 5 hours a week. And here's something that is really important. I want everybody to go through the boring part of doing the research, and then go through the part of doing the paper, then go through the part of talking to the creditors and talk to the title company. I need everybody to go through those steps. It's boring, it's repetitive. After you've done two or three, you're like, okay, yes, I understand the process. Okay, it's the same thing over and over and over again. Once you understand that, though, now you outsource it to a virtual assistant for $4 or $5 an hour. So if your time is worth more than $5 an hour and you're doing the same work, but you try to tell me your time is worth more than $4 to $5 an hour, I'm not believing you, because you're doing $4 to $5 an hour work. In the beginning, you're doing it for educational purposes. So this way, when you hire a virtual assistant, and by the way, we have training things that you give to your virtual assistant that will train them exactly. We show you exactly what to do. And a virtual assistant watches videos and they say, oh, okay, I know what to do. And they go find these deals for you. It's simple. So when you outsource it to VA, if you haven't gone through this process yourself, you have no idea how to know whether or not the VA is doing the work correctly. You have to do the work first. And then I really recommend everybody outsources it so that you can focus on either your life or focus on another business. If you really want to do this business, okay, well, why not hire 2 or 3 VAs that do each aspect of the business? Some people are paranoid about showing the whole thing to one person, thinking that they might steal your idea and they're going to run away and do the money, and you're not going to get the deals. And break it up between 2 or 3 VAs. The average cost of it requires to pay an employee here in America is about $15 an hour. So if I'm doing, let's say, $5 an hour for a virtual assistant, I can hire 3 of those for the cost of what I would pay here in the US. All college educated, all speak English, all can do this work for me. So now it's a matter of throughput. So if I have 3 people doing the work that it would cost me 1, could I get theoretically 3 times the amount of output? And I think the answer is yes. Long-winded answer again to your question, James. I could have just said, oh, it's about 4 to 5 hours a week, but I want everybody to understand, if you want to make about $5,000 to $15,000 a week, it's about 4 to 5 hours a week. You're not going to make it in the first week, okay? Because you have to understand the system. The second week, now you're starting to reach out to people. Okay, cool. Now you're getting things under contract. The one part I cannot control is when that property is going to go to closing. So we have 3 levels. You got a property for sale, you got a property under contract, meaning there's a buyer in place, and you got properties going to closing. Right? So property for sale, property under contract, and property about to go to closing. This one down here will pay you the fastest, but requires you to work the fastest yourself so that you can gain control of those deals. And we show you what to do there so you can pay it in 7 days, but you have to act fast. So if you want to be a little bit more lazy, don't focus on those. Focus on properties for sale and properties under contract because you have more time.
Okay, no, great answer. And that's how I've scaled pretty much every business I've ever started. Is I start by doing the work myself, and it's boring at first, but you have to really get it documented well, because you're going to be trying to explain this to somebody else. And if you've never done it yourself, it's very difficult to tell a virtual assistant what to do. So I always go through, and maybe even a few times you go through it until, okay, I've got this down into basically an algorithm of here's what I do and it makes money. And then what I usually do is then I'll either write software to do it if that's possible, or like you said, virtual assistant. I've got many virtual assistants who help me with a lot of different things. And so basically what you said is how I've scaled every business I've ever started. So really resonate with that. JB asks, is this virtual assistant a human being or an AI? Any room for AI that you see in this?
I haven't tried AI yet. And to me, AI in this process wouldn't be so much AI as it would be a scraper tool. So I could create software like you were talking, James, right, where I know what websites I want to go to. I'll build a tool that has certain parameters. I go out and just let that tool run and get me those. I could probably do that. I just haven't. I've done it for businesses when I'm looking for business, but I haven't done it here because I want a human being to take a little bit of extra time to look at the rest of the deal and the information that's there and pull the data that I want. And sometimes the information is either lacking or it's not accurate, and it requires a human being to make a judgment call. AI doesn't always make the judgment call. They'll stick to whatever you program as parameters, and that's what you get. And so sometimes I want a little bit more information. I would rather have a human being, and I'd rather pay them $5 an hour to do it, and I get exactly what I want. So me, it's a human being. You could do AI, I just haven't done it.
Yeah, another advantage I found with virtual assistants is if you find good ones, they'll often have ideas of their own for expanding, or maybe they might say, "Hey, I can get three of my friends to also do this," and they start coming up with their own ideas, and really it kind of creates it can create a business kind of organically. Whereas AI might get there, remains to be seen, but I'm with you. I like it. Also, too, I like helping. If you're in the Philippines or a country like that, $5 an hour can be life-changing for some of these people. So I also look at it as a way of helping some of those, third world up and coming economies. And it's been very fulfilling. And actually, I've developed a lot of friendships and relationships doing that as well. So,
just to add on to that, James, for just a second. So when I started doing judgments, I would hire people in the office, right? And it got expensive. It worked, but it got expensive. And then I switched over to virtual assistants. I now have 22 virtual assistants and have a virtual assistant manager that manages all of them for me. So they run all of these different deals. And what I like about that is I get massive throughput. Right now, they're all not working in the remote property liens mob, right? They're doing other tasks as well, but I'm getting high quality, educated, English-speaking people that want to work, that this income is actually good income for them there. It sucks here because our cost of living is way, way higher than what it is in the Philippines, but in the Philippines, it's still great income.
Absolutely. Okay, I got one more question. Then I want to get to some audience questions. We've got a bunch popping up here. So, how long would you say on average? I know this is not something that you're totally in control of, so it's going to vary. But how long do you see it usually from people kind of starting to put work into this to where they get their first deal or they see the first fruits of their labor from this?
Okay, so I'm going to give you two answers. And the reason for that is it's all about speed and somebody's ability to drop what they're doing and jump on a deal when it comes into their office. So let's say somebody is just starting out. I recommend they go a little bit slower so they understand the process. In that case, it's going to take anywhere from 2 weeks to 45 days because we're going to look at properties that are under contract, meaning a buyer's in place, a seller's in place. They've already negotiated. This deal is locked up. You can't buy the deal. But when I do research and I find out that there's a judgment on this particular deal, I then reach out to the creditor. I option the right to buy that judgment. I file the paperwork in the land records so the title company becomes aware that I am now in what's called the chain of title, meaning I have a right to that property and to the debts, and I have to be paid. So in that scenario, the only thing I'm waiting for is when does the buyer's mortgage company agree that, okay, yes, we've done all our work, we've done the inspection report, we've done the title report, everything's done, we're going to go ahead and pay, and they go to closing. So that could be anywhere based on when I find this deal. It could be anywhere from a couple of weeks because they may be just about ready to go to closing to 45 days. So the average time in America is about 30 to 45 days before property, when you get a buyer, for them to go to closing. So that's a part that I can't control. So keep in mind, if it was already under contract before I got it, probably a couple of weeks have gone by. So I'm probably in that 2 week to 30 day window. So if I want to speed this up, let's talk about speeding up. If I want to speed it up, I focus only on deals that are already going to closing. Now, this requires people to stop everything they're doing. We have a unique way, a very proprietary way of finding these deals. Nobody else does. Well, there's nobody teaching what I'm talking about anyway, right? But I found a way to find these deals that gets me paid in 7 days or less. More often than not, it's about 3 days. But if you don't stop what you're doing, it will cost you money, not only the money that you would have made on the deal, but to the lead sources that are bringing the deals to you. So if you don't stop what you're doing, well, you still got to pay those lead sources, whether you did anything or not. So for some people, that's too much pressure. All right, push you to the side until you're ready. Focus on deals where you got a couple weeks to 45 days, put a whole bunch of these deals in a pipeline, and then all of a sudden, 30, 45 days later, all of a sudden you're starting getting checks and it just starts to snowball. That's a much more realistic and simple way and less stressful way for people to make money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, a couple audience questions. First off, Ozark wants to know, what's the likelihood of the lien holder being willing to give you an option? He says, I don't understand why the lien holder would be willing to sell the lien if there is a sale pending.
Easy answer. So I'm trying to think about how much detail I want to go into here. The easiest answer is the seller has, the lien holder has no idea the property's for sale. On average, most judgments that we find are 3 years old or older. All right. So 3 years have gone by since the judgment creditor, the person who has that lien, has had any contact with the seller of the property, who's also called the debtor. Right. So you got a creditor and you got a debtor. The debtor is the homeowner. The creditor is the person who has a judgment. So that the creditor has no idea the property is even for sale. We come along and we offer him cash. Hey, would you like to get cash for this judgment? Well, what do you think most creditors are going to say? Right? They've gotten no payments on this judgment in the last 3 years, no contact from the debtor in the last 3 years. Now we're going to give them cash. And you have to remember, when people go to court, okay, and they sue somebody else and they go to court, for whatever reason, there's a lot of emotional baggage that goes with that. And they just want that emotional baggage to go away. And if somebody's willing to give me cash and I can let it go, they didn't get everything they were supposed to get. For instance, when they sued somebody the first time and they got that $10,000 judgment, they thought they were going to get $10,000. And they contact their lawyer and they say, hey, can you collect the judgment? The lawyer says, we don't do that. We just sue you and we charge you $400 an hour to go take them to court. And it's up to you to go try to collect. And people don't know how to collect. I mean, I teach 25 ways to collect, but most people have no idea how to do that. So that judgment that they got will end up in their drawer or their filing cabinet, and they just forget about it. 3 years later, we come around and we say, hey, we're doing some research at the courthouse. Notice you got this judgment. We'd like to get cash for it. What do you think most creditors will say? And James, I'll ask you that question. What do you think most creditors would say? If you were one and I offered you cash on a judgment you haven't gotten anything on in 3 years, what would you do?
If somebody offered me $2K with no hassle or $7K with a hassle, I'd take the $2K with no hassle personally.
Yeah, because right, it's just I got to do a little bit of verification and stuff, which is normal. Okay, here's my paper. We sign up. You're like, okay, cool, I'll take the money, and that's what people do. It's a very simple process. I know people, right? It's once you think about it logically and you go through, you're like, okay, this makes sense, but it's not really complicated. It's actually a very simple process, but it's methodical and repeatable.
Okay, very good. And then Redwin had a couple of questions. He says, can it work in Sweden? So we talked about that earlier. And the recording of this will be available right when we're done. But you can do it for the U.S. from anywhere. He was also wondering if they have the same thing in the U.K. or in other countries, or is this kind of just a U.S. thing?
No, it's actually, it's virtually identical in the United Kingdom, Australia, South Africa, and Canada. So American law is based on old United Kingdom or London law, or not London, United Kingdom law. And Canada is also based on that as well, right? So you have a lot of these laws are very similar. Same thing in Australia, South Africa, right? England, back in the day, was a very powerful country and influenced a whole lot of things. So a lot of the laws are very similar to what happens here in the US. The only difference is I might have to tweak my option paperwork a little bit to match that country. That's it. And I would always encourage everybody, whether my documents, which have been approved by our attorneys, anytime somebody gets one of my training courses, say, hey, Mike, should I have all this paperwork reviewed? My answer is yes. Have your own attorney review it so that you feel comfortable that you're using stuff. And I guarantee you, every attorney will find a way to make a change in the paper because they've got to justify the fee they're about to charge you. They're going to make a change. Okay, cool. And sometimes the title company will have the paper and say, you know what, we want you to use our paperwork versus yours. Can you sign this one? I'm like, sure, I'll do that too. So the paperwork is slightly different country to country, but the process, the steps that we go through is identical.
Okay, nope, that makes a lot of sense. A few more questions from the community. JB says that he has a normal 8 to 5 job, so his free time is in the evenings. Is the work that you're doing, can you do that in the evenings, or does it need to be during the day over the phone?
No, actually, I would encourage it to be in the evening. I mean, sit around, watch TV, watch your favorite show, whatever it is. Do a little bit of research online, and then reach out to the creditor. We show you how to find these creditors through social media. Or worst case, you just send them a letter, and if you feel, pretty confident on the phone, you call them up. It's not hard to get their information because we show you how to, all of their information is in the court judgment record. So it's easy to find out who they are, and you just contact them. So you can do it on in the evening or on the weekends. Either one works.
Okay, very good. James, hey, James, good to see you here. Thanks for stopping by. And he's got some good questions. He says, do you ever have any problems with statute of limitations on exercising liens?
Yes, you do. You have to be aware of the statute of limitation for judgments, which is different than collections. Judgments and collections are different. Collections will typically have anywhere from a 1 to 3 year lifespan before it's collectible. After 3 years, generally not collectible. But judgments will last anywhere from 5 years to 20 years, and they're renewable. So if I buy a judgment, so a lot of times I'll buy a judgment lien inside of my IRA, my Roth IRA. I buy it with that money, so I'll pay cash for it. Now you might say, well, Mike, why would you pay cash? You just said you do an option. Well, I'll pay for it for cash. I'll let it sit in my IRA because it's earning interest. So James, is it okay to go through an example of this real quick?
Yeah, that would be great.
It's going to blow you away. So you tell me what my rate of return would be. I have a $10,000 judgment. I'm buying it for 10 cents on the dollar, $1,000. Okay. On average around the country in the US, so we're only going to talk US right now, the average interest rate on judgments is 10% per year. So on a $10,000 judgment, how much is that gaining in interest per year, James?
You'll have to repeat your question. I was typing something.
$10,000 judgment, gaining interest at 10% per year is how much?
1,000.
And I paid how much?
You paid 1,000.
So how much am I making on my money per year?
100%.
100%. Now, we're not done. So let's say this judgment is 3 years old by the time I got a hold of it, right? And it's on a property, it's for sale. And let's say I did this inside my IRA, right? So I bought it and it's say there in my IRA. Let's keep that focus, right? And it's 3 years old, and that person decides to sell the property. And in order to give clear title to the new buyer so that they can buy it and get a mortgage, they got to pay off my judgment. If it's 3 years old and has interest, are they going to pay it off at what I bought it for, the amount of the original judgment, or the amount of the original judgment plus interest and court costs and everything else that's accumulated? What would you guess they might have to pay off?
My guess is they'd have to pay off everything.
Exactly. They got to pay it all off. You got to pay off the original principal amount plus interest plus any court costs that have accrued. So let's ignore court costs because that might only be a couple $100. But principal is 10 grand. $1,000 in interest per year, that's $3,000 in interest. I bought for $1,000. Ballpark it, James. What do you think my rate of return is? $1,000 investment. I get 13,000 cash back. So I have a net profit of $1,000 in my IRA, my Roth IRA, which is tax free when I take it out. How much did I make on my money?
1,200%. Wow, that's pretty good. And if it's in your IRA, then tax free as well, which that's something totally different topic that we could talk about. A whole other
topic. We could do that some other time, but that's a way is some people say, well, how do I build up my retirement plan? Because it didn't go the way they thought, or they were investing in the stock market. The market went down and all of a sudden they lost 40% of their portfolio with brokers who, their job is to make you more broke, right? And it's a joke.
Yeah.
But here's a way where you can buy an asset that's attached to property where they cannot sell or refinance that property without paying you off, because it's so this mandate with the title companies that says in order to give clear title, you must pay off these debts. So I got $13,000 coming into my Roth IRA, a net of $12,000. So I get my $1,000 back and $12,000 more that I could go out and now buy 13 more judgments. And imagine that, right? So expand that out and do that again. And this is where the power of doing this and sometimes just letting it sit in your retirement account works to your advantage. When you need cash, go out and make cash, but put some in your retirement plan. You'll be really happy that you did.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you start making significant money from this, I want to encourage everyone, make sure you talk to a tax expert about how it's going to affect you, because that's one thing. Sometimes people get surprised when they start a side hustle like this or something like that. They bring in some money and then the tax situation, get on top of that before you start making a bunch of money from this. Couple more questions. Quarter Mile says, so is debt collecting part of this job?
The easy answer is no. The second answer is, well, it depends. So while I have 25 different ways to force the payoff on a judgment anytime I want, even if the debtor doesn't have any income. So I teach these methods as part of our overall training program. So some people say, hey, I want to collect money on other debts for other people, or they're a property manager and they've evicted tenants and they want to collect on those judgments, or they're a landlord themselves and they want to collect on judgments when they had to evict a tenant. These are all techniques that force the payoff of these judgments. You could do your own collections, and I show you exactly how to do that. And there's 25 different ways to get paid. They work in every single state. And it's just a process, and everything is done by mail. But for the most part, and what we've been talking about this morning, collections has nothing to do with what we're talking about. It is part of what I train you, just so that you have a full understanding of everything that can be done and how powerful these judgment liens really are. But collections, for the most part, is not part of it.
Okay. Yep. People kind of want to know what they're getting into, because different people comfortable with different things. So totally get that. James would like to know typical percentage you offer to buy the lien per judgment. Is that vary, or is that part of what you go through in your training classes? Here's how much you should offer. How do you do that?
Part of what I go through in the training. I will tell you this. You really can't go wrong at 10 cents on the dollar. Paying 24, 30 cents on the dollar. I could make money, in fact, James, at 100 cents on the dollar. I could pay somebody 100% what they're owed, and I would still make money. The way I would make money is I make money on all the interest. So $10,000 judgment, I agree to pay $10,000 as an option agreement. And then when it goes to closing, I take the payoff proceeds of $13,000, subtract out the 10, I have a $3,000 profit. So I paid 100%, but no cash came out of my pocket. I used the payoff proceeds to pay off the original creditor, their 10 grand. I still made $3,000. So yeah, I can still make money that way. It just depends on which way you want to go.
Is there sometimes is there a negotiating that goes on where you say, hey, I'll pay you this? They say, no, you need to pay this.
You could do it that way, and that's what I used to do. So the worst thing to do is I'll offer you $1,000. So James, I want you to role play with me for just a moment, okay?
Okay.
Your creditor, $10,000 judgment. I come in and I offer you $1,000 for your judgment. In your mind, what would you start to say instead? You play this any way you want. I don't care.
Okay, I'd say, how about 5K?
Okay, so now you're at 5K. So I've knocked $5,000 off the original amount. I'm winning. Okay, but we have $1,000 to $5,000. That's a big gap. Okay, it's too high for me, right? So now I lose credibility if I come up to $5,000 because I offered you 1,000. Now you may figure I'm lowballing you, but I want to try it a different way. Let's say, James, I offered you, instead I said, James, for this specific debt, I can offer you right now $1,119.17. I can do that, in cash or cashier's check or wire transfer or whatever you prefer. What would you prefer? What would you say?
Yeah, wire. Yeah, and you're right. Giving the exact amount makes it seem less negotiable. Nope, this is what it's going to be.
Right. But did you notice, not only did I give you an offer to the penny, and I let that sit there, but I transitioned it also from how would you like me to pay that to? Would you like it in cash, cashier's check, or wire transfer? So you heard the number, but you're thinking about how do you want to get the cash?
Yeah.
Right. So these are all scripts, right? And we give you all these scripts, but it's part of that negotiation that makes it easy so you don't feel like you're negotiating. You already know your offer before you ever get on the phone. Now you're just saying it the way that I tell you to say it, and it gets you the deal.
Yeah. Nope. That makes sense. Is there a scenario where the lien does not end up getting paid, where you kind of work out a deal and then something goes wrong? And along with that, James wants to know any bad experience on how the entry of the lien judgment into the sale killed the deal.
Okay, two questions. I want to make sure I answer the first one. First one, say it again for me.
Is there a scenario where the lien would not get paid? So I think worried about you work out a deal and then it doesn't end up happening.
There's a very specific way the lien will not get paid. And that is if you contacted a judgment creditor, but the judgment was not recorded in land records. Now, let me explain what that means. So the title company is searching land records. They're looking for mortgages, easements, tax liens, water sewer liens, judgment liens. They're looking for all these things. So you can have a judgment, but it's not recorded in land records. So somebody went to court, got a judgment, they sued them, they got a $10,000 judgment. But the attorney, for whatever reason, and this happens 80% of the time or more, listen to that number, 80% of the time or more, they never record it in land records. Because it's not recorded in land records, the title company will not force a payoff because it's not attached to the property, which means they don't have to pay it off. So the seller of the property sells off the property and the judgment remains. That's how it doesn't happen. If I find this judgment, though, and I just go get the judgment, and for $2, I go get a certified copy, and I can do this all by mail, and I say, hey, record the judgment from the judgment record room, record it in land records. They now record it in land records. I've now entered the chain of title on that property, and the title company will force it to be paid off because of the government mandate. So that's how that happens or doesn't happen.
Okay.
And what was the second part of the question?
The second question was any bad experiences on how the entry of your lien/judgment into the sale killed the deal?
Yeah, I've had a couple where because I recorded my judgment, there just wasn't enough equity in there for everybody to get everything they wanted, including the seller. So you had realtors that were involved. You had the seller who wanted a certain amount of cash. So the whole deal is about to go belly up. So the question is, well, will I take a discount or will I remove my lien? No, I'm not going to remove my lien, but I'll take a discount. So long as it's more than what I agreed to pay for the judgment, I'll take a discount. If it makes the deal go through, fine. Everybody, so the realtor's taking a hit, the seller of the property, they're going to take a hit. They're all taking less so that I can get some cash and I'll take it. So everybody takes a hit, not just dear old Mike. Okay, everybody plays along, and okay, then the property can be moved on and sold to the seller or to the buyer, and I still get paid as long as it's more than what I negotiated with the seller to buy it for.
Okay. Nope. I think that makes a lot of sense. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the training itself, because I think people are wondering, okay, so what do we do? What's going on here? Can you tell us a little bit about the training, what people will learn through it, and just give us a little info on this?
Sure. So we walk you through every aspect of the business. We start by telling you what a judgment is, what a lien is, the differences, how do you make a judgment lien, and we show you how to do the research, define these liens. So we have software websites where we go, and so essentially one-stop shop. And I have videos in there that show you, go to this website, type this in, and all of a sudden you start to look at all these different judgments that are available in any state that you want. Now I have my top 10 states that I love, and I'll share with you what my top 10 states are. But it doesn't mean I can't do it in all 50 states. I'm just telling you what my top 10 states are. And right now, this is a $2 trillion business. There's so many judgments that are unpaid out there, and about 80% of them never get paid because they're never recorded in land records, so they don't get paid off. They just expire and they become worthless after 5 to 20 years, right, depending on the state. So we show you how to find these judgments. Then we also show you how to do the research to see, is there any equity in the property? And it doesn't matter, by the way, if there's equity or not, because in order to give clear title to sell the property for that seller to get out of that debt, they got to pay me off. So sometimes the seller has to come to the closing table with cash to pay me off, even if it's a discount amount. They got to come to the closing table, pay me off just so they can get rid of the debt burden. Otherwise, they got to go to foreclosure, totally ruin the credit. And so we show you how to find these judgments, how to do the right research, how to negotiate with the creditor, and then most importantly, what paperwork to use when you're trying to lock up this deal. Because if you don't use the right paperwork, you are not going to get paid. Real estate is about paperwork. If you've ever bought a house and you've gotten a mortgage before and you look in there, you got a stack of papers this thick that you need to sign, and that's just to get the mortgage on the house. That's crazy. So if you don't have the right paperwork, and we typically have 3 documents that we need to sign, right? And the creditor signs, and we're filing this stuff that puts us in the chain of title. And then we just sit back and we wait. Now we find out who the title company is. We find out the realtor. We let everybody know that, hey, we're in the chain of title. They may not be happy about it, but they're going to have to pay it off regardless if it's us or the original seller. We just make sure they know that we now have control of the judgment and they now got to pay us. That's what I want. And then so we show you how to work with a title company so that you get paid. and then ultimately how you just keep repeating that process. Now, if you're a landlord or you're a property manager and you want to get into your own collections and create a whole business by itself doing collections for other people, we show you how to do that as well. It's pretty cool. So we walk you through it A to Z. Remember that the most people that I encourage you all to start where you're looking at property for sale or property under contract. Don't look at properties that are currently going closing right now, right? That's too short a window. You just can't do that. Well, you could, but in the beginning, I don't want you to. You may want to jump in it because you want a fast payday, but you're asking yourself to get stressed. You know what? Give yourself a couple weeks to get this stuff done and put deals into the pipeline. And what I want to encourage you to do is get deals in the pipeline. Because even if you're working on one deal, don't wait for that deal to pay off. Why not work on another deal and put that in the pipeline? So when the first deal does pay off, you've got 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 more that are also in the pipeline getting ready to pay off. And then we also, James, we also have weekly coaching calls to answer everybody's questions. So everybody gets part of that. And we have there's a discount that people can use in here. And I'm revising this course and making it better. So I'm asking people if they'll be part of a revised beta group to make the program a little better. You'll actually get it in for $14.97, not $19.97. You'll see that when you go into here, but you got to use the code word LIEN, LIEN. In order to get that discount. And that means you're part of that beta group to help us revise the course and make it better. So if there's a video that, let's say it's not really updated, or you don't quite understand what the video means, let us know so I can make a new one and show you what to do. So, some things change, or maybe I need to do a supplement video to explain a technique a little bit better. And I'm more than happy to do that. So we have weekly coaching calls. That's all included. Everybody gets 30 days for free. Should be more than enough for you to get started, do your first 1, 2, 3 deals, get them in the pipeline so you're making cash. So everything is included A to Z in the program.
Okay, very good. And a few questions that I know my audience will have. Well, actually, this is one from the audience here. Does this program have a step-by-step process, or is there more to it? So I think sometimes people are worried that I'm going to buy the course and it's going to tell me most of what to do, but there's going to be a few things where I get stuck. I end up, paying $2,000 and don't ever end up making anything from it. So how step-by-step is this, would you say?
I've gotten really good comments and reviews from folks that went in that it is very step-by-step. And let me back that up by saying this. So let's say that you go in and somehow it just doesn't make sense. If you know that we are doing live, one of my team members are on a Zoom call with you and several other people, why not ask the question, ask us to explain it to you there. Everything is written out for you. So you've got multiple formats. You got audio, you have video, and you have written on every aspect of the business, literally step by step by step. Something doesn't make sense, get on a coaching call and let us explain it to you. That's how confident we are. So yes, it's all broken down step by step. There's no special edition or special, advanced course that you got to buy. This is it. It's right here.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, and the only difference between these two options, just so the audience understands, is just this one's broken up into payments. So Again, if you're a little strapped for cash, but you think, oh, I'll start bringing in money, then you might want to do this. It'll end up costing you just a little bit more total. But if you think, hey, no, I'm going to be going all in on this, I'm going to try getting deals right away, then just pay the full, and then you can get going with that.
That is spot on. Yeah, and use LIEN to get a $500 discount. Okay. Use the code word LIEN.
LIEN, LIEN. I'll make sure to put that in the description too. And then you kind of answer this. Is there a Discord community forum to learn from and ask questions? There's the support, and you do the weekly coaching calls. Are there any other ways people can get questions answered, either pre or post buying the course?
So you could if you want to talk to somebody, we'll answer some of your questions. We're not going to, we'll have people call in and they try to ask specifics on a technique, and because they want us to coach them on the phone for free, and we don't work for free, and neither do you. And I think people can respect that. But if you have questions about the course, you see the phone number, you can call in, we'll answer your questions. But we have the live coaching, right? So once you have the course, you can email us support. You could go to our help desk, or you could go to a live coaching call. So we try to make it easy for you to ask your questions and get your responses right away. It's not a case, I sent in an email and it's 10 days later, you finally get an answer. No, you didn't need an answer today. So all I ask is give us 24 hours. except on weekends. We don't answer questions on the weekends because we want to have a life too. But we have a help desk that will answer your questions, because almost every question you would ask is already inside our help desk. And it'll tell you exactly where to go, and it talks about what you need to do. But that's inside the members area.
Okay, very good. Naruto says, so basically I pay for the course, and after that, I won't need any more capital. Since I don't have much money, paying for the course is the best I can do. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, spot on. You will need, for each deal, okay, just to be safe, you're going to need $1 to $10. Remember, with that option agreement, the dollar, you may not pay that, right? Because if the creditor doesn't ask for it, I send the document to the creditor, says $1 in hand pay, blah, 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 blah. And I don't pay the dollar. But when I get the paperwork back, just because I have it back, if I don't record my paperwork in land records, where they record mortgages, easements, those things, right? If I don't record my paperwork in land records, now you don't want to record all the paper. You only want to record a specific document. We'll tell you what to do. But if you don't record it, you're not in the chain of title. What that means is the title company is going to pay the original seller, and now you got to go to the original seller to try to get paid. And what are the odds of that? Slim to none. You missed out because you didn't follow the basics, right? And this is part of the step-by-step. You gain control of it. The very next step before you do anything else is you record it in land records. You don't tell anybody else that you've got the deal. You don't tell the title company yet. You go, you record it in land records. If you don't do that, I'm going to reach through the phone and slap you in the head because you're not going to get paid on the deal. Does that make sense, James?
Yeah, absolutely. Totally get it. Let's see. Mountain Brothers Production says, how much can we make in a month after the course? So what do you kind of see from people, the other people who have bought this course?
It's really interesting. I've seen a lot of people create full-fledged businesses that they run with their families. Others have used it to pay for the kids through school. In fact, this business we're talking about right now is how I pay for my undergraduate and my graduate school. So I never took out a student loan. This is how I pay my way through school. And so, I mean, it absolutely works. Can you make $10,000 a month? Yeah, sure. Piece of cake. Could you do 20? Sure. Does it require more work? Yeah. So the question, the sky's the limit, but that's such a BS answer, right? What I want to really say is it depends on your work ethic. If you are consistent, consistency is more important to me than doing batches of work and a stop and not do anything for a week. Do a little bit each day, even if it's just an hour a day that keeps you involved, keeps your brain working on the process, you will have more success. I'm not expecting you to do more than 5 hours a week. If you do 5 hours a week, 10 grand a month, I think that's very doable. Realistically, if you get a couple of deals, and I saw somebody earlier where it's talking about commercial property, about the tank, stuff like that. The average size of a judgment on commercial property is $30,000. Think about that. We've done some that were a couple of $100,000 that we got for pennies on the dollar. So you can get all of these different types of deals depending upon, are you looking at raw land, you looking at residential, you looking at commercial? I don't know. And I don't know how long you want to work. So it's really up to the individual. The more time they put in, the more they'll make. Right? It's not, let me push a button and I'm going to make $1 million. If that's your attitude, go play the lottery. You might have better answer or better odds.
Yep. Nope. Totally agree. Is it only for people in the U.S.? No, it's not. That's one of the most common questions. So yes, no, you can do this anywhere. Another question I know people have is people worry they're going to, pay $2,000 for a course. They're going to start going through it and realize, oh no, I can't do this. What have I done? Do you guys have any refund options or anything like that?
Yeah, we prefer people to try it out for 3 days. If you don't like it, we'll give you money back. Okay, I'm not going to sit there and make a year-long thing. It's like either you want to do or you don't. And where we see people that change their mind is they got a course, they saw the shiny object, and they went and they bought it, but they didn't open up for 2 or 3 months. Like, what was this again? Oh, let me just try to get a refund. We don't play that game. So either you want it right away, and if you don't like it, you'll know right away that you don't like it. But if you go in and you watch our videos, you realize, wow, actually this stuff looks pretty simple. Then just go copy what you just watched, and you'll realize that it works.
Okay. Nope. Good answer. I like that. You give people a chance to at least see it, because some people will see it and then just be like, oh no, this is out of my comfort zone. I can't do it. So I like that there's that option for people. What do you see from people who buy this who don't end up being successful? What are the reasons that you've seen that for people that they buy this and then it doesn't end up working out for them?
Typically, it's the shiny penny syndrome. They buy it, they get it, they start to do some research, they get distracted, they got ADD or whatever you want to call it, they get distracted, they move on to something else, and they never come back. Or they don't follow the steps. They say, oh, I just want to go over here, I want to make money by next week. And they go and they try to do that technique that I said, you have to drop everything, and they get frustrated when they lose money because they got to pay the lead sources for those leads, and they didn't get the deal because they missed out. They were too slow to act. That's too fast, right? When I say get paid in 7 days, I mean you get paid in 7 days. Everything's got to get done lickety split. You have to act. But if you take the slightly slower way, where you work with properties under contract, and you just go out and find one deal. I'm not asking you to go find 10. Just find one. Just do some research, and maybe it takes you a week. Maybe it takes you 2 weeks to find the right deal that you feel comfortable with. And you find the deal and you negotiate with the creditor. And let's say that you find a deal, you call the creditor, and the creditor says no. Oh, well, don't get deflated. So what? There's millions and millions and millions of judgments out there. Just because one creditor says no, well, let me give you a statistic. On average, there's 50,000 new judgments created in every single county across the United States. There's about 3,300 counties, so figure out the math. Some counties have more, some counties have a little bit less, but on average, because some counties have virtually no population, brings the number way down. But there's 50,000, and sometimes there's a million. You go to Chicago, holy cow. They have entire record rooms that are nothing but just judgments. There's just so many there, and they have to take them out of archive or put them in archives because within a year, the whole record room, which is an entire floor and sometimes 2 floors of a skyscraper, is full of judgments. That's how busy the courts are. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. Yep. Nope. I think that's perfect. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up there. We're approaching almost an hour. So this is super informative. If nothing else, if you watched this and you said, oh no, I'm not interested in that at all. If nothing else, this has been super educational. Like I didn't know that this existed. And so it's been very educational for me. It's something I want to go look more into myself. For those of you who are in the audience, if you have more questions, please do feel free to reach out to support. Again, I'll post the website where you can go ahead and purchase this. Use promo code LEAN. You get $500 off. And yeah, Mike would love for you to kind of be a beta tester and, give feedback about, hey, this is a little outdated. This is talking about, wearing masks when you go to the court, things like that, whatever the case might be. So you can kind of be a beta tester for that. But thank you, audience, very much. Let me know, too, if you have questions about my opinion on it, anything like that. Happy to talk through that. And Mike, thank you, as always, for coming on, sharing your expertise, sharing this opportunity. And I look forward to having you back here before too long.
You're welcome, James. Thank you very much. And hopefully everybody sees I'm passionate about this. I've been doing this for 30 plus years. This stuff works. It's repeatable, but you got to do something. Sitting on the sidelines gets you the same results you've always happened or always had. So you can't just, like watch the movie The Secret and try to visualize the money coming into you. You actually have to act, or action is not something you say. Action is something that you do. So thank you, James, for having me on. A blast chatting with you. I'll be chatting with you here. I want to talk about some of the other stuff we talked about before. So we'll talk about that as well. So thanks again for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, that reminded me of a proverb. Hard work brings a profit. Mere talk leads only to poverty. So I want to encourage you guys, there's a lot of people who talk and they say, oh, I want to do this. I have this idea. I want to do this. I want to do this. But it's hard work that actually makes things happen. So a lot of times there's so many different ways to make money. A lot of times it's picking one and then putting in the work to be successful with that one. So that's what I want to encourage you, maybe consider if you're a Christian, pray through it. Maybe this would be the one for you to kind of take ownership of. And like you said, Mike, maybe start a business with your family. Maybe your wife or your husband wants to get involved with you. The sky is the limit. Like you said, that's cliche, but it's true. So thank you, audience. Thank you, Mike, so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody.